Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Scene of the Crime, 3 Men and a Mystery, Malice, Riddle Me That, All Things Crime, and Zodiac Speaking. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to look for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us.
Please stay tuned at the conclusion of this episode to hear about our Patreon program and our commitment to help find people who have gone missing. We'll also share with you where you can find more information and how you can join our team and help our efforts. You'll get recommendations for other podcasts we think you'll enjoy, and more.
So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Episode 28, Brandon McDonald. In the spring of this year, 35-year-old Brandon Wayne Carl McDonald was living with his father and getting his life back on track. Brandon was an avid outdoorsman and loved all the typical activities that word implies: hunting, fishing, ATV riding, and so on. His family says he is kind and family-oriented. Brandon has a young daughter from a previous relationship. At the time he went missing, he was living with his father, Jeffrey McDonald, in rural Clarkton, North Carolina, population about 900. Around 3 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, March 25th, Brandon left his and his dad's home at 6529 Burney Ford Road. No one in his family knows where Brandon was going at this hour, or if he was with anyone or meeting up with anyone. He was not typically up at this early hour. Brandon said only that he would be back before too long. Brandon called his father, Jeffrey, from his cell phone at 7:09 a.m. In the conversation, the two made arrangements for Brandon to pick up something from his dad at the house they shared within the hour. Brandon never showed. Later, Jeffrey said that Brandon seemed distressed on this phone call and did not explain where he was, what he was doing, or why he seemed agitated. The family's calls to Brandon's phone throughout the morning went straight to voicemail. After several hours, they became quite concerned, and they were right to be. Soon, Brandon's black pickup truck was found on Burbank Street in Hope Mills, near Fayetteville. This is 45 miles from Clarkton. Law enforcement personnel notified the family that the truck was wrecked and left in a backyard in Hope Mills. The homeowner had returned home to find that a truck had crashed through their fence and was sitting in their yard with damage to it. Police checked the registration and called Jeffrey McDonald, the truck's registered owner. Of course, police did not pick up on the connection to the missing persons report the family had filed with the Bladen County Sheriff's Office because the truck was not registered to Brandon. Only once Jeffrey was notified that his truck had been located were the authorities told of the connection to the missing man. But the finding of the truck honestly just raises more questions. No one is certain when the truck was crashed and abandoned in the Hope Mills yard, but the family believes that it was on the afternoon of Thursday the 25th. Police processed the truck, but we don't know what, if anything, was found. According to one article, Brandon's cell phone case was found in the truck, but no phone was found. Tracking of Brandon's phone showed that his phone last pinged in Laurinburg, North Carolina, before it went off the network for good. The phone ping could not be traced with more specificity, unfortunately. Laurinburg is 35 miles from Hope Mills and 60 miles from Clarkton. The timing of the last pings leads the family to believe that Brandon was in Laurinburg first, and then that he, or at least his truck, traveled to Hope Mills, where it was crashed and abandoned. Brandon's family does not know what he would have been doing in either town. Since then, there has been no contact from Brandon. The family says that it is extremely out of character for him. They know of no reason that Brandon would disappear, and no one has reported any sightings of Brandon. His cousin, Brooke Britt, told the Laurinburg Exchange, quote, "Someone knows something and just aren't speaking up. He would never let his daddy worry like this. He would either call or come home. This isn't something he would do to his family." The family has been driving around looking for him in the area where his truck was found, but since they don't know exactly where Brandon was on the day he disappeared, and the towns where he was believed to have been encompass a wide area, their hands are somewhat tied. Brandon's stepsister Shannon Russell is our guest today. She and Brandon grew up together. She says that this disappearance without any contact is completely atypical of Brandon. According to her, her brother has no mental health issues and no dependency issues. The McDonald family believes that someone has harmed Brandon. At first, they thought that perhaps he was just injured after an accident with his truck and would turn up. At that point, they offered a $1,000 reward for any information about his whereabouts. But since that time, the complete lack of any information about Brandon and the suspicious phone pings and truck condition have led them to believe that foul play was involved. The reward has now changed to an offer of $10,000 to anyone who provides information leading to the arrest and conviction of persons responsible for Brandon's disappearance. Brandon McDonald is 5'9", weighs 191 pounds, and has blondish hair and blue eyes. He has Dreamcatcher tattoos on each arm and KDS tattooed in Old English style on the left side of his chest. He has earrings and a facial scar. He was last seen wearing a camouflage shirt, dark-colored work pants, a dark-colored baseball cap, silver chains on his wrist and neck, and a silver ring on his ring finger. The Bladen County Sheriff's Office is in charge of this investigation. If you have any information on Brandon McDonald, please contact them at 910-862-6960.
In this episode of Missing Persons, we are joined by Brandon's sister, Shannon. Hi, Shannon, and thank you for coming on Missing Persons to discuss your brother Brandon's case.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I hope we can somehow help your family get some answers here. Your brother's case isn't an older case. It's not one that's been out there in the public spotlight for years. He just recently went missing, and I think the sooner we can spread the word and get some social media discussion going on, that kind of stuff, the sooner we can, help to provide some answers, hopefully. Before we get into the details about Brandon's disappearance, can you tell us a little bit about Brandon himself and what was going on in his life?
Brandon was my brother. He was about 2.5 years younger than me. Brandon was a family-oriented person. He loved his family. He had some rough patches in his life, but before he went missing, it seemed like he was getting his life back on track with things, which we as a family were excited about. and he loved the outdoors, loved fishing, hunting, four-wheeler, lean. He loved being outdoors. Also, he loved wolves. Anything with wolves on it, he was a fan of. And he just cared about his family, and he would do anything to help anybody if he was able to.
Your family, do you have a big family?
Brandon does have a daughter. She's 10 or 11 years old now. As far as siblings, I am his only sibling. So it was just him and I. So, but he has a lot of aunts, a lot of uncles, a lot of cousins. So we do have a large family. So for this to happen to Brandon, it's just very it's devastating to our entire family.
So being the two of you, the only siblings, were you pretty close with each other?
We were close as kids growing up. As we got in our teenage years and got into our young adult years, trying to figure out who we are as people or who we want to be. He went his path and I went my path. And so just trying to figure out who we want to be as adults, as most siblings do sometimes. So in the last, probably in the last year or so, we were starting to kind of reconnect back together, especially in the last about the last 6 months or so, we were starting to kind of connect a little bit more. Brandon's stepmom, which is my mother, Brandon and I are stepbrother and stepsister, but we have been we consider each other brother and sister. But Brandon's stepmother, which is my mother, passed away about 7 months ago. So as a family, we have had back-to-back tragedies happen, and so it's been very hard on us as a family.
Yeah, that's a lot to go through in a short period of time, I imagine.
So it was Brandon's stepmom and my mom, but and my mom. So we were step siblings, but we always considered him and I always considered each other brother and sister.
So you have different fathers, because we're going to talk about
different fathers, and different mothers. So
let's get into around the time spring 2021 when your brother went missing. Do you know of any? Was he having any problems? Did he have any issues with anyone? Was there anything going on in his life that maybe said, when this happened, when he went missing, something you could point to say, I wonder if it's this or that?
His life was, it was good. He had made some changes in his personal life, which were good changes. He also moved in with our dad, which was good for both my dad and him. So nothing out of the ordinary happened before March 25th, 2021. So this whole situation that we've been dealing with, it's very shocking as a family to state that we're going through this right now, not knowing where he is.
I guess that not knowing sort of tears at you a little bit, I would assume.
Yes. It tears us up as a family. It was especially in the very beginning, because not knowing if he was hurt or if he was cold or if he was hungry or if he was wet, just not knowing what kind of condition he's in. It was very nerve-wracking in the beginning. And it still is now, not knowing. And we're 40 some days in on this now, and just not knowing where he is or how he is. It's nerve-wracking. It's devastating as a family.
It's been reported that Brandon left home in Clarkton, North Carolina, in the early morning hours to visit his father. So, and maybe you can correct that a little bit, the way it's been reported.
So Brandon was living with our dad, and in the early morning hours of March 25th, 2021, he told our dad that he was leaving home, but he'd be back in a little bit. And my dad, of course, being a father, he's asking him, where is he going at that time in the morning? And Brandon was one of these people, if he didn't want you to know where he was going or what he was doing, he wasn't going to tell you. So he kind of just ignored it or shrugged it off when my dad asked him where he was going. But he told my dad 2 different times before he left home that he loved him and he would be back in a little bit. So when Brandon walked out of that house that morning, he had all intentions of coming home. And something happened for him not to come home.
Well, and thank you for clearing that up, because the reports make it sound a little bit like he was leaving one home to go to another home, which was your father's. But he, just to clear that up, he lived with your father in his home and went out for a little while and was planning on coming back.
Yes.
You mentioned he was private. If he didn't want you to know something, he would keep it to himself. Was it unusual for him to just go out and run errands or do stuff, that early in the morning, overnight hours, that kind of thing?
Yes, very unusual. That early in the morning, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, yes, very unusual.
So he doesn't come back. Did your dad wait up for him, or did he just go to sleep thinking he'd be home when he woke up? Or
my dad went back to sleep thinking, he'd be back in a few hours. And then a few hours later, my dad received a call from Brandon. And during that phone call, Brandon was supposed to come back to our dad's house to pick up something that our dad was going to leave for him. And, my dad assumed, hey, I'm going to leave this here for him. He'll be back soon. He'll be back within the hour or so to pick it up. So when he didn't show up, when the first hour passed, and then the second hour passed, and then the third hour passed, my dad started getting worried, because that was not like Brandon at all, not to show up to get something. My dad had left something. My dad was leaving something for him. And so my dad, during that phone call, told him that he'd leave it for him. And when he didn't show up to pick it up, when he didn't show up back to the house to pick it up, it was very suspicious.
So when Brandon called, did everything seem normal? Did your dad notice anything unusual or out of the ordinary?
My dad said that he did notice that Brandon's voice, he sounded distressed. So, but other than that, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing. My dad didn't really pick up on anything, just that his voice sounded very distressed.
And did Brandon say at that time where he was at or what he was doing?
No, he did not say where he was at, who he was with, or what he was doing. He didn't say anything like that at all.
At some point, you said your father's upset. He knows something's wrong. He's getting really anxious. At what point did he decide, I need to call the police, or did he call you or call other family members first? When did he decide to do that?
Well, after probably about 3 or 4 hours after Brandon had called and he hadn't come back to the house to pick up what he was supposed to pick up, that's when he called Brandon's mom and told her something's going on and explained to her what had happened that morning. And then, obviously, they could not file a missing persons report until 24 hours after the fact of when he was last seen. So, my dad and Brandon's mom kept waiting around that Thursday on the 25th, thinking Brandon was just going to come home. And, the afternoon passed and the evening passed, and we're going into night, and Brandon's not home, still not home. And then it got to be early Friday morning, and that's when my dad was like, we're going to go ahead and file a missing persons report on Brandon. And then my dad called me and told me what was happening.
So that must have been pretty frightening, pretty, upsetting for him to have to take that step and file that report.
Yes, very, very upsetting.
So you're waiting. I assume that people are calling around. Have you seen Brandon? That kind of thing. Eventually, while you're waiting, while you're not having any answers, that your brother's truck was found in the town of Hope Mills, which I think is 35 miles northeast of Laurinburg, which we'll talk about because that comes back to the phone call. How far is Hope Mills from your father's house?
Probably about 45 minutes. Hope Mills is right near Fayetteville, North Carolina. So from my parents' house to Hope Mills, it's probably about 45 minutes. 45 minutes to an hour, roughly.
And do you know who it was that found the truck and what told them something's wrong here?
The property where the truck was found, the person that lived at that property, from what I understand, they came home from work. Obviously, they see a truck wrecked in their yard. Like they had a chain link fence around their yard. Where the truck was found, the chain link fence was destroyed, and they called the police. And the police came. I'm not sure if it was a local police or a state trooper or a sheriff's deputy, but when they saw the truck and they got the tag number, they ran the tag number through the system, and that's when it pulled up as the truck being registered to our dad. And that's when my dad got the call saying that the truck was found in Hope Mills.
When you heard the name Hope Mills, did that town register to your family? Was there any connections there, any friends there that your brother might have been going to see there?
No friends and family.
So that town was sort of a surprise when you heard his truck was wrecked there.
Yes.
As far as the condition of the truck, can you tell how bad the damage was? Was it something somebody could have walked away from? And additionally, were they able to determine when about, as far as the timeline, that the accident happened?
As far as the damage to the truck, it was something that you could walk away from. As far as the timeline, we're assuming Thursday afternoon is when it was wrecked. The timeline is still a little sketchy just because we're not sure that exactly what time. It had to be afternoon or maybe evening when the truck was wrecked, where I'm not sure when the guy that found the truck, when he came home, I'm not sure what time it was he came home exactly, but we're assuming it was Thursday afternoon on the 25th.
So that would have been after your brother called your dad, is that correct?
Yes.
And was there any of his personal belongings or anything in the truck of his that you were able to identify?
No.
And then one last question about the truck. Do you know if they processed it looking for fingerprints or any other things to maybe see if someone else other than your brother had driven it and crashed it there?
The truck has been processed. And
is it being held in evidence, do you know?
I'd rather not say.
Okay. So let's go back to the phone call. So eventually the police start checking the records of the phone call your brother made. And the one from that he called your dad in the early morning hours at 7:09, I think it was, that one is the one that was linked to a town, Laurinburg. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that town, where is that in relation to where your dad lives and to where the truck was found?
In relation to where our dad lives, Laurinburg is probably from our dad's house. It's probably about my parents' house. It's probably about, I would say, anywhere from an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And from Laurinburg to Hope Mills, where the truck was wrecked, it's probably about a 45-minute, 50-minute drive. Yeah, from our dad's house to Laurinburg, it's probably about an hour 15-minute drive.
So Laurinburg seems like it was going the opposite way, not coming towards home, but going the opposite way, maybe.
Yeah, it's from what it sounds like, the truck was going from our parents' house to Laurinburg and then made its way up from Laurinburg to Hope Mills.
You mentioned that Brandon didn't really know anyone, as far as you know, in Hope Mills. What about the town of Laurinburg? Does he know anyone there? Would he have any reason to be there?
No reason to be there at all. He doesn't know anybody or anything in Laurinburg.
As far as his phone, besides that one call they pinged, were there any other clues or any other calls of interest that they were able to find on that phone that provided any kind of clues?
We do not have any information about phone calls or text messages that were made on that phone or made on his phone.
And I guess maybe the police are keeping that under wraps, sort of?
I'm assuming so.
To your knowledge, was there any indication that Brandon was alone that night or that he might have been with a friend or anyone he knew? Has anyone come forward to say they saw him overnight when he went missing?
No. To our knowledge, no one was with him or has come forward to say, hey, I saw Brandon after he left our dad's house that morning or anything. Nobody has come forward stating that they saw him after he left our dad's house.
So essentially it sounds like, unless the police are holding something under wraps that they have, it seems like your brother just disappeared without a trace.
Yes, pretty much.
Have there been any kind of organized searches of any areas, anything along those lines to try and figure out if there might be a clue, a sign out there someplace that he may have been there?
The thing is, we don't know where to start searching. We have tried to get information to possibly have a location to start the search, and we don't know where to start searching. If you're familiar with the area, there's a lot of it's a lot of woods, a lot of swamps, a lot of terrain in the area. So it covers a lot of area. If you're going from our parents' house in Clarkton to Laurinburg and then Laurinburg to Hope Mills, it's a lot of area to cover. So as far as searches, there has not been a search to my knowledge because we don't know where to start searching.
Yeah, it'd be like finding a needle in a haystack, figuring out where to start the search, I imagine.
Yes, sir, pretty much.
So I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe not, but I would think in this situation that your family's just picking their brain, looking for any kind of thing that stands out, any clues, any things that Brandon may have said or done in the time leading up to his going missing. Have any of you come up with any kind of ideas or theories about what may have happened to him?
We've got theories, but I'd rather not disclose those theories. For one thing, I don't want to jeopardize any the investigation going on. And number two, I don't want to point fingers at someone and I don't have evidence to support my theory or for us or as a family to support our theories.
That's understandable. Did your brother have any enemies or anything that you know of that might have a reason to harm him?
Not to my knowledge, but I'd rather not say.
Does your brother have any kind of history of mental illness or any kind of dependency issues that might have caused him to have some kind of break and take off?
No, sir. Not at all.
So, I think you mentioned it's 40-something days at the time of recording this since he went missing, and there's just no sign of him. And that's got to be pretty frustrating to not have some clues to work with.
Yes, it's very frustrating because this, we know Brandon, and this is not Brandon. This is not what he would do. He would not let our dad sit in agony, waiting to come home or waiting to hear from him. If he was, I know Brandon, and he would have found, if he was in trouble and he was able, he would have found a way home. He would have found a phone to call somebody and say, hey, I'm in trouble. Can you help me? Or, I'm hurt. Can you help me? if he was able, he would have found a way home, or he would have been home by now. So to not know where he is or what happened to him, it's a nightmare. I don't wish this on anybody at all.
It's certainly understandable when you lose someone like this to not have any answers, that you would be feeling helpless and not know what to do. And speaking of what to do, is there anything maybe in your minds that the police haven't done that you would like them to do as far as trying to find out what happened to Brandon?
I mean, the only thing I can say is just put yourself in our shoes here. And if it was your son or your brother or your dad or your uncle or your cousin or nephew, I mean, or your friend, and you know that this is not their behavior, and just put yourself in our shoes and and think about how you would feel if you were in this situation. And I pray that the police are doing everything that they possibly can to help us find Brandon and to bring him home. I pray every single day that they are doing everything that they possibly can to bring him home, to find him and bring him home.
And I know initially, early on, when Brandon went missing, there was a $1,000 reward for information about Brandon's whereabouts being offered. But that's now changed to $10,000 with the caveat of it leading to the arrest and conviction of persons responsible for Brandon's disappearance. I know you don't want to talk too much about some of the details. Can we maybe believe that because of that change in the language of the reward that you think he's met with foul play?
As a family, we suspect foul play, yes.
And hopefully someone, if they know what happened, would come forward, not because of the reward, but because it's the right thing to do to help your family. Has there been any kind of tips or anything that's come in to possible sightings or anything along those lines?
As to my knowledge, I have not heard of anybody calling in with any tips or sightings or anything.
And hopefully if people are paying attention and they listen to this podcast or they see your brother's picture someplace on Facebook, they'll take a second to just listen, look, and see if there's anything there that they might know that they can come forward with. Have you started any kind of social media pages or websites for Brandon's case?
I have been, since Brandon went missing, I have been posting on Facebook from the beginning of this, posting, his pictures, his description, flyers that we've created as a family, that the sheriff's department has created. There's an organization called the Q Center that's out of Wilmington, North Carolina. They've created a flyer. There is another organization out of Virginia, out of Christiansburg, Virginia, I think actually out of Roanoke, Virginia, that they created a flyer. I have been sharing, and along with family members and other people that have seen our post on Facebook, have been sharing. So this, as far as on Facebook, him being missing has been broadcasted.
Well, and hopefully the right person sees it or, hears about the case and says, something about that rings a bell. Let me come forward and share information that they might have, even if it's something a little, it might help the police in some way.
Yes, and even the news stations out of Wilmington, North Carolina, they have broadcasted his story. So it's out there. As far as trying, I live in Cary, North Carolina, which is near Raleigh. I've been trying to get it on the news stations up here, because the news stations up here cover Fayetteville, Hope Mills, and Laurinburg area, and I have not had any success.
Well, hopefully people will allow you some kind of space to talk and make people aware of Brandon's case, and hopefully the news stations near you will do the same thing.
I hope so.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we'll definitely do our part to help get the word out there. We'll spread Brandon's case on our show and on our social media, and invite all of our listeners to please do the same. And if you can, share Brandon's information, and so that people know that he's missing, and help his family out. I can't thank you enough, Shannon, for coming on, and I hope that you do find some answers pretty quickly, and not have to go through this agony of waiting.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And like I said, just please, share this with as many people as you can. The more people know, the better. We're just wanting to find Brandon and bring him home.
That's the goal that we have, and I hope we can help in some way to have that happen for your family.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, we hope that you'll contact the appropriate authorities.
We hope that you'll tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will really help us grow. And if you'd like to help us reach new listeners, please be sure to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on.
We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Patreon program. If you visit patreon.com/missingpodcast, you can sign up to help this podcast through ongoing monthly support. As a thank you, we'll give you an on-air shout-out, a thank you card and sticker, plus you'll get ad-free early access to every new episode of Missing Persons, as well as any bonus content.
In this episode, we'd like to thank Justin Ware. Your Patreon support also goes directly towards helping the missing, because every dollar that we earn through Patreon will be split with two worthwhile causes that benefit the efforts to bring missing people home: CharlieProject.org and Private Investigations for the Missing. Your Patreon support will really go a long way towards helping. We hope you'll consider supporting the show. Just a reminder, new episodes of Missing Persons drop every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, you can search Facebook for Missing Persons Podcast. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can always find us on our website, missingpersonspodcast.net. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.
Missing Persons is produced under the name AbJack Entertainment by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt. It's hosted by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt, with writing and research by Jessica Betancourt and editing by Mike Morford. Be sure to listen every other Saturday for an all-new episode of Missing Persons.